Ever feel like, I don't know, like there's this invisible script we're all following
Yeah.
when it comes to like how we're supposed to act, especially as men and women?
It's a question that gets at the core of how we see ourselves, how we fit into the world.
Totally. And today we're going deep on Judith Butler. Talk about someone who makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about gender.
Absolutely. Butler's work is, well, it's challenging. Forces you to confront assumptions you might not even realize you have.
So for someone who's just starting to explore her ideas, what are the must-knows?
Gender performativity, that's key. It's this idea that gender isn't something we just are biologically, but something we do, a performance.
So not fixed, but something we actively create,
So-
or how we present ourselves.
Right, and those choices, we're not making them in isolation. From childhood, we get these messages, these expectations for how boys and girls should act, dress, even feel.
It's like we're handed a script at birth, huh? But if it's all a performance, who's the director?
That's where it gets even more interesting. Butler, she draws on Foucault here, points to societal norms, power structures. Those are our invisible directors.
So it goes beyond like just our parents or teachers telling us how to be masculine or feminine.
Yeah, think about it. Those expectations that men should be tough, stoic, women nurturing, emotional, those get reinforced everywhere, from casual conversations to what we see in the media.
Wow. So we're all in this play, and we don't even know we're acting.
And that's where Butler gets subversive. If gender's a performance, it's not fixed. It can be challenged, messed with, even totally redefined.
You said subversive, and I know some of the material we have mentions Butler being critical of traditional ideas about identity, even identity politics. How does that fit in?
So Butler's saying these categories, man, woman, they feel natural, but they can be used to, well, limit us, even keep power imbalances going.
Like trying to break out of a system by, I don't know, playing by its rules.
Exactly. This is where essentialism comes in. That idea that there's this, fixed essence to being a man or a woman. Unchanging. Rooted in biology, so no questioning it.
But you're saying these natural differences we hear about, maybe they're not so natural.
Exactly. Physical differences, sure, they exist. But the meaning we layer onto them, how we experience our own bodies, that's culture.
Which leads us to another big thing with Butler. The body itself is socially constructed.
Hold on. How does that work? Our bodies are, well, they're physical.
Right, and this is where it gets really cool. Butler says our bodies aren't just biology. They're shaped by how our culture interprets them. Like the meaning attached to a male body versus a female body. That's influenced by social stuff, medical practices, all reinforces those gender norms we were talking about.
So it's like society's looking at our bodies through a distorted lens. Yeah, like a lens that's already got all these expectations built in. Think about how even just the way someone moves, their gestures, how they sit, it gets coded as masculine or feminine. Those aren't inherent to our bodies. They're learned, performed. Then we interpret them through that cultural lens.
So our bodies become part of the performance, even if we don't realize it.
Exactly. That's what's so eye-opening. It's not just our actions. It's how we understand our physical selves. Deep stuff.
Okay, so the script affects what we do, even our bodies. But what about how we feel, our sense of self? The reading touched on vulnerability, ethics, precarity. Where do those fit in?
That's really where Butler's work gets, real. It's not just theory anymore. When she talks about vulnerability, she doesn't mean weakness, but we're all susceptible to being hurt. Physically, emotionally.
Right, those moments where we feel exposed, unsure. How does that connect to all this stuff about gender and power?
Well, she argues that these systems of power, the ones that create those gender norms we've been talking about, they often work by taking advantage of that vulnerability. And precarity, that word, it's about people who are especially vulnerable, living with constant risk because of social stuff, politics.
So, like marginalized groups, facing discrimination, systemic barriers.
Yeah.
Their lives are precarious in a way that someone with more privilege might not even see.
Exactly. And Butler's saying, recognizing that shared vulnerability, that we're all capable of being hurt, needing help, that's crucial for a just world, a moral world.
Moving away from that us versus them towards recognizing we're all human. Hurting one part of us hurts all of us, right?
Exactly. That's what's so powerful. It's not just about taking apart categories. It's about, fighting for a world that's more compassionate, more fair.
I'm sure Butler has her critics too, though. What are some of the counter-arguments to her work?
Oh, of course, yeah. Nobody's ideas exist in a void. One thing you hear a lot is that By focusing so much on social construction, she's downplaying biology, like inherent differences between men and women.
That whole nature versus nurture debate.
Exactly. And Butler does say biology matters, but she puts so much emphasis on how society shapes how we understand it. Another critique, it comes from some feminists, actually. They say by picking apart categories like woman, she makes it harder for women to fight for their rights.
Because if there's no fixed idea of woman, who are we fighting for?
Right, that's the idea. But Butler would probably say she's not trying to erase the experiences of women or other groups, but she is showing how those very categories get used to, keep power structures in place.
So acknowledging the nuances, not pretending they don't exist, seems like Butler's really sparked some important conversations, even if not everyone always agrees with her.
Absolutely. That's the mark of work that matters. It makes you think hard, question what you believe, really debate.
She's definitely given us a lot to think about. We've gone from gender as a performance to, like, the body itself being socially constructed,
Mm.
and then the ethics of it all. What would you say is the biggest shift Butler offers?
I think she wants us to see gender not as this box we have to squeeze ourselves into, but as a possibility. Maybe even, I don't know, creative.
Like that stage we were talking about.
Mm.
Maybe even a chance to write a new script entirely. That's a great note to end on. Thanks for this deep dive.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.